السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. عميات، شو أخبارك؟
نضال الحمد لله.
شلون أمورك؟
تمام. حكيت هلا مع عثمان. He's a couple minutes late.
Okay.
Yes, he should be there. He just called me actually. He
Yeah.
apologizing for
That's
running
okay.
a
And
little
then, yeah, and then عادة we start like 8:05 usually.
bit.
So we should be okay إن شاء الله.
فيديو ولا بلا فيديو؟
فيديو كويس رائع منور.
وينه أنا؟ تحياتي.
بس دكتور عيون ونظارات شلون هي ما بصير.
مو هيك شو بدنا نعمل طيب؟ لقينا شغله نحطها عليه. ايش اخبارك زعيم؟
والله الحمد لله بخير، الحمد لله كله تمام.
good. هلا حكمة what grade؟
6th grade.
Okay.
صار middle school.
يلا يا زلمة شغلي. Where is this sound?
And do you want me to introduce you ولا just go ahead, introduce yourself or speaker, either way, whatever you like. يعني
Introduce myself. I will introduce myself and introduce them. يعني I'm gonna صراحة make it brief. يعني from that perspective يعني and go from there. يعني أنا I talked with him. يعني مثل ما شفت actually I missed what the topics he put initially. يعني we're gonna make it short. We want to open more يعني Q&A
for discussion. Yeah.
صراحة I'm still learning. يعني Selva went to OSU. Aya is applying this year. It's a process that يعني it takes time to understand. Still, you're learning something new all the time. يعني it's way more complicated than
نحن straight forward. قلت لك straight forward. بس you study for the exam and whatever your score, that will guide you to college, university.
مفضلي list.
يعني it's easy, it's very easy يعني relatively.
جامعة حلب كلية طب، جامعة دمشق كلية طب، جامعة
yeah ما بدها وما في لا volunteer ولا project ولا research.
And
just
honestly, yeah, it's
one score.
Yep.
أنا هلا على شو اسمه هون ال OU الادميشن committee selection. يعني I review their application. Oh my God. بقول أنا I will never be able to attend medical school هون ب US based on these qualification. يعني they do a lot.
Yeah, the amount of work, it's getting more and more competitive. يعني can you imagine now? And I've seen this all the time. Now you finish college early, you don't go to medical school, doesn't give you any head time. Relax, you have to work extra year or two to be يعني to consider your application. And it's actually negative until you finish too early. You're not mature enough to go to medical school. And give it a break. شو هذا؟ طيب. I don't know.
Yeah, this hopefully will be very helpful for people. وبالخصوص اللي عندهم high school, middle schooler يعني.
Yep. And this is being recorded, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And when you share it, do you share it with members, or how does it work with sharing?
يعني نحن على البلاتفورم تبع الممبر we share it وإذا حدا ما هو member يعني get access to it it's fine يعني it's them see يعني the work of Sam it's totally fine.
مساء الخير، يعطيكم العافية. عبد الفتاح.
الله يعطيك العافية. أهلين دكتور عبد الفتاح.
أهلا وسهلا. الله يعطيك العافية.
الله يعافيك.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Sorry for the delay. The presenter called me and I apologize for being a couple minutes late.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Should be okay. Yeah, usually we wait like till like 8:05 to have like more members joining, so it should be okay inshallah.
No.
For people who just joined, we're just waiting on the presenter. Inshallah, in a couple minutes he will be here. So I guess I can start a little bit here with introduction of what's the plan for tonight for people who are here. Osman Khan and Dr. Amina, they're both people actually who I knew for many years from Columbus, Ohio. Dr. Amina did her neonatology fellowship here, and they were our neighbors for 3 years here in Columbus. And we kept in touch, subhanAllah, even when they moved to Chicago, where they're living there for many years. Brother Osman being really very helpful when it comes to college admissions, and he's been presenter and talking about this for many years. But subhanAllah, when Nidal approached me about talking about this subject, I felt this is going to be the best person to kind of reach out to talk about this subject, given his experience. And I still call him for questions and things like that. So it's really good resource when it comes to that. He just called me a couple minutes ago and he said he apologized for being late. So inshallah we'll start soon.
الله يعطيك العافية. وطبعا معنا دكتور إياد أزرق, ophthalmologist from Columbus, Ohio chapter. He's well known to Sam's community, وmission volunteer. الله يعطيك العافية يا إياد.
Allah يعافيك. Yeah, sorry, I didn't introduce myself. You're right.
Well, please, if anyone has any topic of interest for future webinar, let us know. We'll be happy to bring speaker to discuss whatever like topic of interest you guys think we should discuss the monthly webinar.
I'm going to share on the chat on Zoom, actually, the basically the Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. If I know how to do it, where is it? Here we go. Chat to everyone. I'm going to send the bio of Osman and Amina. Why I cannot send it? Is there any restriction on?
Maybe Salam, can you share the bios?
Hey, yeah. Hey, guys.
Hey, assalamu alaikum.
Sorry we're late. We had our son's last football game. He got injured, so we had to talk to the team trainer. It's funny how many doctors are on the field. Talk to the team trainer to get him crutches and make sure he can get home.
Right.
Yeah,
No, I hope that he's not too bad.
He's not too bad. My wife is she's coming. She just wanted to make sure he yeah, he's limping, but you know, last game.
To make you feel better, just to make you feel better. I don't know, it doesn't feel better, but just, you know, just things happen with kids. Karim broke his hand just a month ago, so things.
Yeah, it's funny.
Comes with the territory.
Comes with the territory, but the funny part is, it's like, you know, it's like now he's got to talk to his uncle to get his X-ray, you know, and it's like when you know too many doctors, it's like, okay, who do you pick up the phone to call? Like, okay, we know that's in sports medicine. Who can hopefully he doesn't need to go to orthopedics. But, so let me share a little bit slide. I can get the conversation started. I will share a few slides. So yeah, do you want to? I mean, I can just. How do you want to?
I talked a little bit about you. I'm going to share your bio about you and Dr. Amina.
Okay.
And basically, we're going to share your bio on the chat. MashaAllah, very impressive. You share the good and the bad in your bio. And I encourage everybody to read it because really, you know, there are ups and downs in everybody's life and, you know, challenges, you know. So obviously, and that's something important to know, that no one is perfect in a sense, but it's really the journey is what, you know, define us. And really, the subject of college admissions is really a long, you know, very extensive, very difficult and very complicated subject. And it's not one size fit all also. It's obviously everyone has different needs. Every family has a different dynamics that all contribute to that. But in general, giving a lot of us came here, we're learning things on the spot. Our first experience in college is with our kids because we went to graduate schools overseas. Some of us had masters, had you know, some studying here, but did not get through this process of high school in the United States. So I think it's really important to start to say, you know, we you know, how we can help our kids, what the kids need to, what we need to know as parents, how we prepare our middle school, high school to college admission, ACT, SAT. We hear about these tests. You know, how we build this resume. Obviously, it's getting more and more competitive now to get scholarships, to get all the stuff. So
some guidance, you know, through this process would be important.
Yeah, so it's interesting to say that because I have a deck that I don't know if many of you know Sister Jenna Al-Bazra. She's from Ohio. I believe she's Syrian American. And so Jenna and I, Jenna went to Harvard and she is at McKinsey now. But we gave a presentation at ISNA and also at Mass ICNA. And when we start out, we kind of lay the ground like, it's really difficult. And it's not to scare people, but to show the reality, this is how hard it's become. But I don't want to do that tonight. I don't want to, I think parents are already nervous. I'm not here to make you even more nervous because that's not what we can control. We can't control how hard it is to get in. What we can control is how do we work with our children? How do we help them think about ways for them to stand out, ways for them to, explore what's available to them in their community, ways for them to make an impact, and ways for them to be successful in middle school, in high school, and in college, right? Those are things we can control in our house, right? That's what I'd rather focus on because for me to tell you the acceptance rate from these universities went from 10% to 8% to 5%, and you need to do X, Y, Z. It just all it does is adds to the paranoia and hype. And I don't know if that's gonna help. But I'm willing to talk about whatever you guys want. I just want you to realize that the way if most of you, if you did medicine, got into residency and fellowship programs in America is very similar to the college process. In fact, I have students who we worked with when they were 17, 18 and came for help for college, then came back for help with getting into MD or DO schools, who then came back for help with residency. And then, inshallah, hopefully in 2 years, we'll come back for fellowship. But the point was, it was storytelling at each stage of that journey, but it's different. This personal statement you wrote for residency is not, it's not the way we write personal statements for college.
Please, everyone mute other than Mr. Osman. Thank you.
So I was just saying, so most of you know how to write a personal statement. You've gone through that process, to get into really, programs here and to match here. You understand that journey. We don't have a matching system in college. You can get into one school, you can get into 10, you can get into 5, right? We don't have a matching system, but you still have to do the same introspection. Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to come here? And my wife is here, Amna is here. And so actually, to take a step back before we even get to this, a little introduction. So my name is Osman. I know Iyad from Ohio. We were his neighbor when Amna was doing her fellowship at Nationwide Children's. And so we lived right next door. And that's how we would talk about this many years ago when our kids were in kindergarten. What do our kids need to do to stand out? We were thinking about this like when they were 4 or 5 years old, just thinking, no plan, just try different things. We tried Cub Scouts, we tried jiu-jitsu, we tried soccer, different sports. Just give our kids a chance to explore. We tried different types of schools, public school, Islamic school, different schools. So again, we didn't have all the answers, but we were willing to experiment in a way on our kids. And because I'm the eldest of 5, Amna's the eldest of 3, we've had a chance to experiment on our own siblings and help coach them to get into their graduate programs, college graduate programs, residency and fellowships. And so we've taken that and now have shared that with other students. And to the point where I was doing it as I don't want to say hobby, but I was doing it on the side. And it became so busy that I left my consulting position so I could help more students. And right now we have a student that's in Gaza who reached out you know, and I'm just hearing how challenging it is. But it was impressive to me to see a student reaching out to somebody in America, say, can you help me? Can you show me what I need to do? To ask the same questions, to find the school that can accept me, to find a place where I can go that will give me a full scholarship. That
I'll,
will,
yeah,
right? So
I will interrupt Osman just for a second to welcome Amina. Obviously,
yeah,
it's
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, I always do that. I always
yeah, but
take care of the room.
but also let's for thank you for the introduction, really, but really to jump into the practical, as you
Yep.
said, it doesn't help to say how hard things is, how practically we can help in middle and high school.
Sure. So, one second. Let me go back 1 second. So one of the things that we talk about how it's important to help our kids. First of all, experiment. But the key thing is in college there's 5 variables, right? You have your GPA, you have your test scores, you have your recommendation letters, you have your extracurriculars, and then you have your essays. Those are the 5 main things. There's some extra things where you can do, like you might get an interview. It's not required a lot of places. Those are extra. But the minimum, these are the 5, right? But the key thing, if you look at it, your GPA and your test scores, those are things, again, you can control. Your courses that you take, how much time you put in to study for the test. Just like for those who applied to medical school in the US, they have to take the MCAT. Those who took the USMLE Step 1, Step 2, Step 3, your board examinations, you know what it's like. You have to prepare. You can't just walk in, right? It's the same thing for the SAT and the ACT and the PSAT. You have to prepare. So those are the things you can control. The recommendation letter, you can somewhat control. Again, you pick the teacher who writes it for you. You demonstrate, or your child demonstrates their interest in the class, their performance. That goes in the recommendation letter. If that teacher is an advisor to a club that your child is in, or a coach of a sport your child is in, or a director of a play your child's in, they can complement what they did in the classroom with what they did outside the classroom, right? So those are GPA, test score, recommendation letter. Extracurriculars are there for you, for your child, to show them how, what kind of leadership potential they have, what kind of impact they made in the community. It used to be when Amna and I applied, and my background is, again, I grew up, I was born in India, I grew up in Saudi Arabia, so I know what it's like to go to international schools. I went to an Arabic school beginning, then I went to an international school, then I came here for high school. So I've seen both. And I'll tell you that the thing with extracurriculars is when I came here for high school, the push was to make you well-rounded. In India, we call it an all-rounder. I don't know in Syria what the term is, but he's good at sports. He's good at academics. He's good at speaking. He's good at, or she's good at, playing an instrument. She's good at programming. Like, they want to see that you can do everything. That model has changed. They are now looking for people who are maybe 1 or 2 things, but really passionate about that one thing. They don't want 10 things shallow. They want 1 thing deep. That's just good for our kids. You don't have to attend clubs. Just do 1. Do it really well. Do it for a long time.
Being focused in activity that's excel in it, rather than being in 10 different things that you're not really understanding what's going on in it.
And then the last thing is the essay, and we will talk about it, but and that's a place for your kid to shine.
Yeah, and the thing with the activity as well, it's not just a random activity, it's an activity that helps bring their story together and and helps them kind of come alive on paper, right? So it's something that makes sense. Like, okay, this kid wants to do this with their life. This is the activity that they were doing. And I'm not saying that they need to know what they're doing right now as, 9th and 10th graders, but I'm saying that when we're writing the essay, or when you're putting together the application, you want that whole story to come together. So
can you give us an example?
Sure.
You
Yeah,
wanna
I mean,
use Ellie's example?
yeah, like, you want to use your brother's example? So her brother, I'll give you an example. He at age 12, okay, he had
Fast forward
he
a
had a condition, a juvenile condition when he was 8, and had to live in the hospital for a month. You're all doctors, so you understand. I don't want to give his condition, but it was I mean, you
He
know,
had a malrotation that became a volvulus, so like an incarcerated intestinal development that became very emergent and then required him to have an ostomy for a summer and then reanastomosis at the end of that summer. But
I don't even know what that means. It sounds painful.
it was very formative
Yeah.
for me and my brothers to have him go through this experience this summer in this and I think that really formed him, but also us, because we were kind of going through it with him. So neither of our parents are physicians, but all three of us became physicians, and I think that was very formative.
In
Very
fact, I
early
remember
on
all of
in
you
us.
wrote, I mean, in some capacity, each of you put that in your personal statement.
Yeah.
And so the thing with the youngest brother, Ali, was he after living in a hospital for a month and seeing what the different physicians were doing, the different specialists, right? In a way, he was getting to shadow them. They were coming to see him. Surgeons, GI docs, right? They're all coming to see him, right? And so he gets to ask questions and learn. So he decided, I think I want to do this. And then he met my cousins who were in BSMD, direct admit programs out of high school, at 12 when we got married. And then when he was 12 when we got married. So he said, okay, I want to do that. And we had to explain to him that it's very hard to get, right? Just it's very limited seats. But he's like, dream big. Why not? Nobody in my family has done it. Why not? Let's try for it. So he just put himself in a position to get deep and find a way to shadow doctors. He started out by pushing patients in wheelchairs, right? Taking them in the wrong place. He didn't know where the radiology is and taking them to the other side of the hospital, right? But he learned his way, navigate through the hospital, volunteer, work his way. I think in high school, he was even doing in high school like sleep study. He was the guy who would put the electrodes, and he was getting paid in high school to do that, but it gave him an exposure, right, to get deep. And when it was time to apply for college,
He'd also done the journal.
Oh yeah, and then he also he applied to American Cancer Research to do research. They rejected him. So he found another professor who would take him, convinced him, and got to do research, then found out that there's no place for a high school student to share their research. So what we did is we said, instead of creating a new magazine, let's find out what's out there for college students. We found that there is a scientific magazine that college students started. It's called the Triple Helix. And we started at Cornell. We founded them. I don't know
Sorry,
if
it's like somebody. Nidal, can somebody mute?
It's so bad.
No,
Can you guys hear?
Can you hear
Yeah,
us?
now I can hear you. Yeah.
So what he did is he reached out to the students, college students, and said, hey, I would like to publish my research in your magazine. They're like, you're a high school kid. We don't publish high school research. We only do college research with professors. He's like, well, I did professor, but like, no. Then he came back and said, hey, how about a subsection just for high school? I'll go find out and show you what the market is. I'll tell you how many other kids are doing in high school. I'll show you if there's, that this could be a new area for you to expand to. They're like, we're not interested. After 6 months of pestering him, they said, fine, you can get a section on our website. They already have the Triple Helix. They made a tab called the Copernicum. They said, you can own the high school section. And then he used that to go attract high school students to submit their research, scientific research. And through that, it got published. The advisor to that magazine is Bill Nye. I don't know if you heard the science guy. He was the advisor to the whole effort. That's what helped him get into Harvard. I think that's one of the reasons, was he created something out of nothing, right? But not from scratch. He used someone else's idea, hooked onto the idea, and that helped him, stand out from the competition, right? Do you see what I mean? But it was intentional. It was like, okay, there's no magazine. Okay, nothing. Make a door. It doesn't exist. Find a way to create an opportunity. Find people who are experts to help you get there. And so when he interviewed, they asked him about it. Because they're like, wait, you're already working with college students? And you're working on virtual teams? This is 2006, almost 20 years ago. You're working on virtual teams remotely, collaborating on a magazine. So that's what I'm saying, is that he didn't need to be at a university. He didn't need to have the computer brings the whole world together, right? So you can make a club from your this is not a school club. This is a extracurricular club, right? That he just started.
Yeah.
That's what I want to tell people, is you don't have to be limited to what's in your school. Look at what do you like to do? Who do you want to do it with? Reach out to them and form your own club if you need to, right?
And I think the other thing that is important to realize is that, there's certain things that you're doing in high school that you might not use right away as part of your story in college, right? But you might use it for grad school. So my example is I worked in my mom's daycare out of necessity as she was starting up her business to help my family start up. And that was my extracurricular activity. I could not do extracurricular activities. I had to go home and help her in the daycare. But that experience helped me learn how to manage a business, learn how to manage clients, learn how to manage kids, to actually, fall in love with kid care. And so, I did use that for my college application to explain my lack of extracurriculars, which I think added a whole nother level to my presence. But then that really solidified my story for when I was applying for pediatric residency, to kind of show that longitudinal commitment to kids, to that comfort with kids. And so I think that, like, whatever you do, there's something as parents that we kind of want to think about, like, how is this going to connect to my kid's story? What will they maybe want to do, for grad school, for their future? And so that it kind of is something that we're looking at the angle for them a little bit. Obviously, we don't want them to, be the cookie cutter application student. We want them to live their journey, be authentic to what they're interested in, what's passionate to them, because that's going to show through when they walk into that interview. If it's, us showing them, this is what you have to do, this is what you have to do, that doesn't show through an interview. An interviewer, they're very acute people that know how to pick through what kid is authentic and can stand by what they did and why they did it. So I think that's something that we're thinking about as parents.
And originality. So authenticity is key. How do we know authenticity? We ask why. Why did you do that? Why was that important to you? Like with Ali, why did you want to do a magazine? Why did you want to do scientific research? What was your reason for that? Is it to look good on your resume? Why do you care? Oh, you think about doing academics? Oh, tell me more, right? I want to know the why. Originality is, can you do something that, it doesn't have to be you climb Mount Everest or you won a gold medal. It could be something that it's in your own town, that you did something that you care about, that you saw that nobody else was stepping up and your child stepped up. And that's interesting. Again, why did you do it? Is it original? Those are the kind of stories that what we ask students to explore, because sometimes they try different things and they fall down. Eventually, maybe the second, third try, they figure out what they want to do. That first, second, third try, those are not failures. That is actually growth. That's why I say imperfect stories matter, because that growth is what they're interested in. Why you did it, how did you grow, what did you learn, how will this benefit our students in our university? right?
Imam, man, Jazakumullah khair for this. To point, well, I want to you or Sister Amna to touch on the ACT, SAT. We usually in high school we say, "Oh, my kid is junior. All right, which exam you're gonna take? Yeah,
Sure.
prepare for it. We're gonna maybe find a tutor that everybody using, sign you up with that, and do the exam." That's a common, thing we
Yeah.
all do. Is there in couple minutes? Because I really, there's so much
Yeah.
things
Questions.
to
Yeah.
and I really would like to, if anybody has a question, what to submit in the chat, so we can maybe organize the questions toward the end of the talk would be great. But yeah, about SAT, ACT, here in Ohio, everybody doing ACT, everybody in Michigan doing SAT. We always get those questions. And again, as preparation for them, any thoughts, any ideas about that?
I mean, first thing, both are equal tests, right? So the colleges don't care. They're both the same, right? One is not stronger than the other. It used to be SAT was more popular than now it's the same. The thing that I tell parents is start them early. Start them early, like get them to read at an early age, get them to, just do problem solving at an early age. Now, when you're in high school, there are ways to, if you can get them to start thinking about it in 9th, 10th grade, just start with going to the College Board app, the Blue Book app. You can take the diagnostic, the digital SAT. You can see what it's like, or ACT.org. You can do it online. Get a baseline. From that,
How early are we talking about?
I mean, my students started in 9th grade.
9th grade, okay.
Just to do baseline, not to do hardcore, just
Correct.
to baseline,
What-
know
to
where
know
you stand, right? Are you 1,000 on the SAT? Okay, where do you want to be in junior year, in 3 years from now? I want to be 1,400, 1,300, 1,500, whatever you want. Make a plan to get there. How do you get there? Multiple options. Try, look at the free options first. Khan Academy is the official partner of the College Board. It will actually, when you do their test, show you where you are strong, master, where you're weak, need mastery, and give you problems till you master it. That's the free option. There are artificial intelligence tools like acely.ai that have a test bank of 5,000, 10,000 questions. It costs money though. That's the next option. Then the next option is if you're a junior and you don't have much time, then there's tutoring, right? And there's all sorts of tutoring. There's one-on-one, virtual, in-person, remote, in a classroom setting, right? So you got to see what fits your budget. But the key is at the end of the day, the test score is important for the schools that require it. There are some schools that are test optional. If your child does not do well on these tests, then you can look at those schools and say, okay, those are the schools we're looking at, but you're looking at a very small subset of universities, right? A lot of them have come back, test required after the
And
pandemic.
then when your child does the ACT and SAT prep tests in the forums that we're talking about, you'll see kind of where they score higher, and then they work on that test. So if they score higher on ACT versus SAT, then they work on the ACT.
And that's what we want, the baseline. We want them to know their baseline in both so that they can, what you don't want is you go so far and you realize you can't get higher than a 1,200 on the SAT. And then realize, okay, let me try the ACT. And you're going, wow, I'm getting 33. Like, why that's fine. But let's get that from intelligence up front from the beginning, right? If we can get that front and we know that ACT is a better fit, let's switch to that. And if you're, again, our school requires the ACT. Last year with the SAT. You can supplement, right? If your child is in a school where the test does not fit them, you can take it outside of school, right? And you take it at another school on a Saturday, right? It doesn't have to be what your school does. So if the ACT is not a good test for your child and the SAT is better because there's no science, shorter amount of time, less questions, if that's better for your child, find a school where they can take the SAT and register for it there and they can do that. You're not limited to what just your school offers.
Yeah, interesting. I found talking with people, a lot of just people doing what their friends doing rather than checking on their own, either one. Sometimes the schools obviously offer those exams, but they offer them, I think, 10th or 11th grade. Here in Ohio, our schools are they don't get the testing until junior actually, so it's kind of late in the process. But just for resources for this, for those testing, you said the official website of SAT and official website of ACT, correct? If I remember correctly, they do have those
Yeah, the
sample tests.
yeah, and then the College Board, the official website for the SAT is administered by the College Board. The College Board has an app called Blue Book. And when you go through there, you create your profile. It's the same profile you can use to take AP mock tests or AP tests, as well as for the SAT, right? So that Blue Book app is your friend, your child's friend. They should get to know it. They should tap into it. That's where, even if you're doing tutoring, even if you're doing something else, come back to it for the diagnostic. There's like 5 or 6 diagnostics in there. Keep checking on yourself. Hey, how am I? These are real test questions, right? If you do the Princeton Review or Kaplan, they have their own diagnostic, which is fine. But what I found is a lot of time those third-party companies, and I'm a beneficiary. I mean, Amna and I in Ohio both took is it Kaplan? Yeah, the Kaplan on High Street. She was taking the MCAT and I was taking the GMAT. So, there's a role and there's a place for them. But I remember their tests were really hard. It's designed to make me feel worried that I need them, right? If they said I'm doing really well, I'm not going to sign up. They intentionally give me the hardest problems to show me how bad I'm doing. Right? So just keep that in mind. That's why I go back to the diagnostic, the actual one, official questions from the original test producer, because then you know where you really stand. And then it's okay if you know Kaplan's really hard, and on the Blue Book you're getting 1300, on the Kaplan you're getting 1100, you know it's off by 200, that's fine. But if you go from 1100 1300 on the Kaplan, you know you're going to crush the real SAT, right? So just keep in mind the diagnostics are not the same. Kaplan diagnostic is not the same as Princeton Review, is not the same as the College Board. They're all different.
Okay, tamam. So moving from this point to the application process itself, obviously there are deadlines, there are terms that we never learned. Obviously, we still early decision, early action. Abdul Fattah Sha'ar put this question here, to talk more, because it's really a foreign language for us, the early decision, early action, regular admission.
Sure.
And how the students kind of, which options align best with their goals and being ready. So can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, for sure. So let me pull something up. So early action. So let me see if I can pull something. Let me give you. I have something that here. Let me share the screen. I'm gonna share a different deck.
You have to stop sharing.
Stop sharing up here. Okay. Let me move on to the other deck. Why do I do that? Oh, share. Okay, got it.
No, you have to get back to the Zoom page.
Yeah, actually, you know what? It's fine. I think the key is here. I have it here. Share.
No, that you have to go back to the
Zoom.
Zoom.
Yeah, share. Okay. Do this one. Okay, sure. So early decision is binding, right? If you apply, and again, the deadlines are November 1, November 15th is the early deadline. It was originally when I applied 30 years ago, when people used to apply, it was for the people who really, really wanted to go to that one school. And you only applied to one school early. And then you got in and then you were done. And that was it. If you didn't get in, then you knew I have to apply to 10 other schools or 5 other schools. And then you spend the rest of the time in Thanksgiving in December and doing that. That's the way it originally was. Now all it did is it's moved the deadline up. It used to be January 1. Now it means everybody's applying early, right? And so now everybody feels pressure. Why is my kid not applying early? You have to understand that ED means it's binding. The only way you get out of it is if the financial aid package that the school offers is less than the NPC, the net parent contribution that was calculated, right? That FAFSA if the amount that was calculated, you know, when you go, if the package is less than that number, then you can get out to, hey, I can't afford it.
Price.
But if you're not applying financial aid and you are bound, it is expected that your child will go. Early action has the benefit. Early?
Sorry. One sec.
It has the advantage of getting the decision early, but it's not binding. You are free to apply to as many schools after the decision. With early decision, you have to withdraw once you're in, you have to withdraw your application elsewhere. So
do you have like 24 hours to accept or not accept, something like that?
No, ED, there's no accept, you're going.
You're done.
You're done. There's no accept. EA is different. You have some time for EA to actually, if I remember correctly with EA, I think you have until the same amount of time. You have until April. I believe you have until April, May to tell them if you're coming, just like if you had gotten regular. I think May. So you have the same deadline to submit your answer in EA as you do if you applied regular. It's just regular, you find the answer 1 month before you have to tell them. EA, you get a lot more time. The difference is early application, the acceptance rates are much higher, but the quality of applications are much higher. They're much stronger. These are the people that really want to go there. Regular, you get the whole bell curve, and the acceptance rate is much, much lower. So I'll give you an example. Hypothetically, Harvard has, pick any school, Duke, 50,000 applications. Okay, or I'll take Columbia, or NYU. NYU has 120,000 applications. Okay, they take 6,000 people out of 120,000. That's a 5% acceptance rate, right? Same thing like Columbia. They have 60,000 people. They take 3. The point is, of the amount they're going to accept, they're going to take typically half early. So if 20,000 people apply early to NYU, I'm making up these numbers, but they're going to take 3,000 out of 20. So 3,000 out of 20 is 15%. Not bad, right? But these 20,000 really want New York, really want to go to NYU, right? And are taking the time to do their paperwork, get the recommendation letter early, essays early, really making that effort, right? The 100,000 people who applied January 1 had a lot of time, right? They're applying for 3,000 spots also. That's 3% acceptance rate for regular. The weighted average, I don't have the number, but you can figure out it's 3.3%, right? Plus this, it's a weighted average. And then you're going to get a number between 15 and 3, and it's probably like 7. But it's not really 7 because it was 5 times easier theoretically to get it early. But the quality, these are the strongest applicants, the highest SAT scores, highest GPAs, the best stories. They're applying now, early, right?
The
100,000 apply. You have people who just checked a box. Some people who just wrote a basic essay. Some people who quality essays. You have a whole range in the 100,000.
So obviously to be ready early, give you better chance. And that include if you have a good GPA, which include that probably you have some AP classes, right. You had good score, your essay is ready, which actually takes time to write. So talking about college essay and what to I know this is books being written here, and I don't expect obviously in 5 minutes to have it detailed. And you said we wrote personal statements, but yeah, I mean maybe we did some work on that, but I'm not, alhamdulillah, we got in, but really, I'm not sure how different that in college and what they need to see in those, college essays. Just a kind of synopsis, an idea on this.
So for the stories, they have the Common App. There's multiple ways to apply. There's Common App. There is different Quest Bridge. There's different ways you can. It depends on your financial situation. There's different ways to, submit your application. But the Common App is the most general one. So I'm going to again talk about the one that's 80%, right? The one the majority of people do. They typically have 6 or 7 prompts. The 7th one being, if you don't like this 1 through 6, pick anything you want to talk about, right? So basically, you can write anything you want. There will be a prompt that you could take that anything and fit in number 7. But what do those 1 through 6 typically talk about? Tell us about a time where you faced adversity. What did you learn? Tell us about a time where your values were questioned. What did you learn? Tell us about a time where somebody you trusted, made you question your faith. What did you learn? Basically, they want you to explain something about your growth, right? And adversity can be different things. Adversity can be like the student I'm telling you, working with in Gaza, like survival, right? They have no schools. How do we keep ourselves educated when there's no schools? That's adversity. Adversity can be, I'll give you an example. I had a student in Ohio who, when he was 12, was riding his bicycle and hit a curb and broke his teeth, fell down and broke his teeth. So you can imagine if you can't afford to get all the teeth repaired, or this time between, getting the repairs done, what it does to a child's confidence. Will they talk? Will they raise their hand with broken teeth? Adversity can be, hey, I have a neurodivergent condition that I'm working through. I have a diagnosis that I'm managing. I have medication or strategies to manage that I'm working through. There's so many different things that people can talk about for adversity, right? The key is, we're giving you an example here. These are 4 brothers who grew up in Ohio. They just graduated from Yale. Their essays were so good that Harvard and Yale fought over them, and Yale gave them all full scholarships at the end. They got so their stories. If you look at it, what was interesting is, you see they're all different. Yes, they were quadruplets, but each one was an individual. And what was interesting is they've all 4 graduated, and it's interesting to see that most of them have followed their path, what they wanted to do. Some of them have taken a different course, a different pivot, but the key is they learned that the art of storytelling helped them not only get into college, it helped them get their job, it helped them get into graduate school. It is a life skill that we want our children to master. How do you make yourself memorable? That's the goal of the essay. When they ask you about adversity, when they ask you about what you learned about when your ideas and your faith were challenged, they want to see how you think, and they want to remember your story. I mean, you want them to remember. They're reading thousands, 100,000 applications, right? How are they going to remember you? How will that reader stand up for you, fight for your child, and say, we need to accept this kid, right? You've got to demonstrate something that shows originality, authenticity, to really break through the noise. And what happens is most children, unfortunately, write the same 5 predictable stories. Relative passed away. A pet maybe passed away. I went on an amazing trip back home to Syria. I ate this dish. This is a dish that we love. I mean, it's fine. Those topics are not off the table, but you got to make them very specific. So what I recommend students do is take an inventory of their life. What were the highs and lows? in their life, right? Find out what made their inflection. Find out, like that kid broke his teeth. When I first talked to the parent told me, oh, my kid just plays computer games. And I asked the kid, okay, what do you do? And he's like, I run cross country. I'm like, okay. And I do crew. I'm like, okay. What else? And then, oh, you know, I like music. Okay. I mean, these are general things, nothing, you know, nothing saying, you know, Olympic medalist, this, you know, I'm the valedictorian of my school. I'm, you know, a national merit finalist. There's nothing like that, right? Just average stuff. But when we did this math, we uncovered that at 12, he broke his teeth. And then like, okay. And as we started looking back, we're like, wait a second. Wait. The reason once you broke your teeth, that tells me the why. Does that explain why you run? Yeah, I don't have to talk to anybody. I'm just running cross country. Oh, does that explain why you're downstairs in the basement playing computer games? Yeah, they can hear they don't see my teeth. They have a microphone. Oh, that tells me the why. The what was, oh, I do these things. This exercise helped me identify the why. And then we said, when you're doing crew now, crew is you're rowing on a boat. What's your position? Oh, I'm the guy who's the coxswain. I'm the guy yelling at these guys, you know, which way to go. But I'm like, wait, hold on a second. You were a shy kid over here, shy kid. And now you are over here telling me you're on a crew team. Tell me that journey. Tell me that growth. He's like, yeah, they can hear my voice. Oh, wow. You came out of your shell. That's the adversity, right? Adversity he had wasn't just like, you know, breaking his teeth. It was now he was a different person. His personality changed. And he found a way to get back to the way he was through the sport. So we're like, that's an amazing story. Show me your growth. Here's the part that most kids forget.
So it's really helping the children finding, you know, their unique story that they can talk about, and that's really become their story, not
Their story.
just a generic story of, you know, I wear hijab, I just, have, the same kind of family, I remember you talking with, well, yeah, you're hijabi, but how many hijabi you are?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's like Salwa. I mean, do you mind if we talk about Salwa, your daughter?
I mean, that's fine. I mean, but
No, I'll give you an example. In medical school, I was pregnant near the end of my surgical rotation, and I had fainted in the last surgery. I'd finished closing, I was assisting, I stepped back, and I think the adrenaline dropped and I just fell back. And I, got stitches and, I had a concussion. And, at that time I had so much to prove that I didn't care I had a concussion. I went to take my surgical shelf and I failed my surgical shelf. And it was
by 1 point.
It was bad, right? Like I shouldn't have gone to take the test. In the middle of the test, I had to go up, go throw up, come back. It was just a hot mess. But at that time, when you're a medical student and you're so driven, you don't know how to say, I'm gonna take this later, right? You power through. So anyways, when I was writing my letter, I had to explain, and I was writing my statement, I had to explain, this failure, right? But this failure was very real to me, to what I was doing at that point. And so one of the ways I brought my hijab in, because I know that's who I am, right? People are going to see that. I was like, I explained how it covers my scars, right? It covers something that I went through in life and is a protection for me in a way.
The stitches on your head.
The stitches on my head from when I fell. And so that's how I brought that into my personal statement and used it as a strength of mine.
And they made you take the whole surgical rotation all over again.
Because that's how surgery is.
You gotta do it all over. They don't care.
That's very painful. I wanted to see if anybody has any questions from the audience.
But yeah, one thing I was just gonna mention, with that growth story, it's amazing to show a child starting something, failing, getting back up, failing again, and then eventually mastering. That's awesome. The part where I think a lot of students don't do, and this is the part we try to tell them, is the pay it forward. Can you share your gift with someone else? Now, that's why I told this child, now that you have your voice, have you helped someone else come out of the shadows? You know, is there a club that you were involved in that helped people get comfortable with their insecurities? And he's like, no, I don't have that. And that was the miss. And that's what he worked on in college. He got into, not his top choice, but he got into a really good school. But he worked in college to work on that area, how to pay it forward. And that helped him get into his dream job. He wanted to work on Wall Street, and that helped him stand out from the other applicants, right? So the point is, it's not just your growth, it's how you help others grow. Because now when they see that, they go, oh, this person, when he comes to my university, isn't just going to be staying in the library and studying. He or she will be trying to make their classmates' experience better, right?
Amen.
That's what they want to know, right?
And I wanted to see if anybody has a questions. I mean, I know that we can talk about that more, but anybody from the audience would like to ask questions straight?
Yeah, if anyone has questions about supplementals or, happy to. There's a whole strategy around supplementals too. Because when you apply to medical school residency,
It's overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
This whole thing is overwhelming. That's completely understandable. But one of the things, if you take away anything from this, is like any problem in life, anything in life, you just need to put time and mental thought towards it.
Yeah.
So if you put time towards it and mental thought towards it, you're going to be ahead of the game, because you're going to be not, kind of coming from it from behind. So that's the most important thing, is saying, okay, what's the strategy that I'm going to use? What's the time I'm going to spend doing this? And that helps take the pressure off both, the whole family, because you want this to be a positive experience. This is a chance for your child to shine. This is, the next step. This is a happy experience. And that brings it all together for them, and they enjoy doing this with you as
Yeah.
well.
And if they can start doing their essays in the summer, right, then it helps them, just take their time. Because right now I'm working with seniors, and they literally have 8 days to meet their deadline.
Yep, we're almost there. Yeah.
8 days. And so what we found is, it takes a while to get the writing, creative juices flowing, because they are not taught how to write creative writing in school. They're taught persuasive, maybe, or analytical. Here's a lab, here's the results, or here's a book report, they're not taught how to write creatively about themselves, right?
A couple of questions I got, Osman. Best resources to help critical thinking and problem solving for middle school. You said, you help them develop that critical thinking. Anything specific about that?
So, critical thinking, my biggest thing is problem solving. It's key. Problem solving comes from exposing them to multiple things. So, like, I have a lot of people I know send their kids to Kumon, or they send their kids to Russian math, or they send their kids to, there's like coding camps. That's great. These all teach them how to solve problems. But critical thinking comes from reading tough books, reading a book and understanding it, looking at world events and trying to figure out what's going on, or try to find patterns in history, try to find patterns in data, try to find patterns in whatever you care about, artwork, jewelry, fashion. There are cycles when things are in fashion, not in fashion, right? Critical thinking is being able to spot those patterns, understand why, and be able to connect those dots, right? So whether it's art, music, fashion, sports, whatever they're passionate about, pick something, let them go deep. Whether it's going to museums, reading a book. If you're like, my kid doesn't like museums, my kid doesn't like reading, there's different ways.
But that skill is transferable. So it's like it's kind of learning how to crack the code.
Yeah.
So once you learn how to crack an idea and a concept, then you know how to crack. You can learn. You look at the test as I have to crack the test. I have to start thinking of how the test maker thinks. So if then it's like kind of transferring it to the concept of, hey, I read a segment like. And that segment, then I know how to answer a multiple choice question off that segment.
Yeah.
Because that's, you know, these standardized tests all are based on that concept is how do you read something and then answer the information off of that.
Yeah.
Tamam. For early admission, there's a question I got. There's a brother, I think Mahmoud is want to ask question, but before that, there's one question. Early admission, what supplements we can send as a senior?
It depends on the school. I mean, if
So
you apply
that's
to an architecture school, you're gonna have to send a portfolio of your artwork. I mean, your designs and drafting. So it depends. If you're applying for, you know, if you're a drama theater student, you're gonna have to send a portfolio of like your acting performances, right? If you're a musician, you're gonna have to send samples of you playing your instrument. So it depends on the major, it depends on the school. But some schools will just say, hey, there's an optional essay. Use this opportunity if there's anything you want us to know about you that you have not covered anywhere else.
I see.
And that opportunity, that's your chance to, I know some people use that to create a video. You know, they're like, oh, if you want to send a video, we have a 2-minute limit. We'll only look at the 2 minutes. You send us 10, we'll only look at 2 minutes. You can talk about it. And what do you think most people talk about in their 10 minutes?
Mhm.
Most people will go over their resume. I'm
You
born
want-
here,
which is
I go to
already
school,
It's
and
already done.
it's already done. So one of my friends, his son, his video, he thinks, I saw his video, it's amazing. His son's video, he feels it tipped him over, he was just like, I'm gonna cook my favorite dish. Let me show you how I make it. You know, I'm
in 2
wearing,
minutes.
and he just walks you through this dish. And at the end, the family sits around the table and they eat it, and then you can see the reaction. I remember that guy now. He's the foodie, he's the chef. Now, the thing is, he was original, right? That's the thing. But he loves to cook, right? He's not applying to be a chef major. It's just this is something he enjoys.
Yeah. Mahmoud, you have a question?
I do. Thank you. Thank you guys so much. This is really great. Couple of things. From one side, during high school, there are a lot of options for AP classes. Does that make a big difference which class to pick or not? And is there like a specific number you recommend?
No, this is a specific number. They want to see that your child is
IQ.
they want, yeah, there's something called so they have buckets when they look at, right? And one of them is academic rigor. So they want to know how strong is your school, and did your child take advantage of the resources available? So for example, if your child's school has no AP, has no tests, right? AP, then what are the options they could do online to supplement? Dual enrollment, community college. There are other options, right, that they could do to supplement, to say, look, if my child is really good in French, but we don't have anything beyond French 3, then they could take these additional classes to push themselves. That's what they want to see. That can you push yourself in an area, in school or out? And you know, you maximize the resources they have, but you have to do well. There's no point doing French 7 and getting a D, right? You got to do something that you're doing really well in. Another bucket they look at is intellectual vitality. And that's where they want to know, what do you think about? What have you done that shows that your curiosity and maturity and empathy makes you a good candidate for admission to our school? That's where some people say, hey, that's where community service or extracurriculars, whatever you want to call it, there's something you care about, your child cares about. For example, I met some student who is curious about sneakers and the market around sneakers. Why is the market the after sale market about sneakers, you know, so outrageous? You know, you buy a Nike, if you can get it, it's $150, but there's not many. When they put on eBay, it goes to $1,000. So he was studying that. Why is this happening? He's learning economics. He's not taking micro macro, but he started learning about economics and about the supply and demand, pricing, and then he started getting really deep on sneakers. How much does the sneaker cost to make? How much are they charging? It was getting really, really deep. And then is it ethical, not ethical, child labor laws, who's making the sneaker? So he went really deep. This is not in his classroom, right? He went really deep in that space. So
This
that's something extra. That's called intellectual vitality. That's something that people bring up in their supplemental essay. They say, what is your major? Why do you want to come here? This child is now talking about, hey, I think I want to do economics and political science. And here's why. I had this question. I did this research. This is what I found. As a result, I have now written to my congressman to campaign against child labor laws, right? Now you're showing me, this is not a course. This is not an AP, but you're showing me that you have, outside the classroom, picked a topic that you care about, gone deep, and made a community impact. They're looking for that. A lot of our kids don't do this. And they are unfortunately only focused on the AP, SAT, ACT, GPA, which are table stakes. You need that, but you need to stand out. How do you stand out? It's like we said, you need to go deep. One thing, this is that person's one thing. You take something you care about and the supplemental, you show them why it's tied to the major you're interested in, and then how this would relate to a professor you want to research with, and a class you may want to take, and a club you may want to join, and how you're going to make it better, because I did this amazing thing in high school, and I will do this amazing thing in your university, and I will make it better. Then they see that full story, and it's credible and authentic and original. Those are the supplementals that I'll give you an example. I met a high school student who is working for the Lymphoma and Leukemia Society, LLS. I'm assuming some of you might be familiar with that. And he was fundraising with them. All right. He got his neighbors, his parents, colleagues to donate. And he did pretty well. And he moved up. And what we said is, there was another student that we had who did the same thing, who's now in a university. And we said, can you two work together? And can we bring a hematology oncologist to come speak at that campus? This person cares about lymphoma and leukemia. I said, what was your reason? He's like, I have a grandmother, I have a family member who has this issue. Okay. And I'm raising money. Okay. A lot of people raise money from breast cancer, but he's like, now I'm working with the chapter at a university. Okay. I'm trying to make this college better. I'm making a difference already from high school. And I'm bringing a relative, my uncle, who's a hematology oncologist, to come speak to this college, right? He's using his network, his resources. And that student who's in college has invited the med school, M1, M2, M3 students to come in. And they've invited a medical professor in hematology oncology who has gotten an award from LLS to come join the panel. But do you see how it started with fundraising, cares about blood cancer, getting other people.
It did went deep into it.
Not deep, and not only that, they've got other high schools who have LLS chapters to be invited to this presentation on a college campus with this guy's uncle, who's a really good renowned hemonc, to present. But this is all you have. You all have these resources. You have this network. If your kid, and this kid may not want to do med school, he may not want to do it. He may not be pre-med, but he was just showing this is my impact. I think he was thinking of econ. This was not, he's a BSMD student. This is not, I'm a pre-med student. This is, I just want to show how fundraising can make a difference. And the hematology oncologist explained, thank you for the fundraising. The research that you do in these med schools is dependent on the fundraising. It impacts the quality of research, quality of,
there's a couple of questions. Bakri, you have a question?
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you. for the presentation. So my two quick questions. One, is there any benefit of doing both APs and dual enrollment? Taking college courses. My second question is when it comes to sport, how well or what kind of achievements you need to achieve so that sports can play a role in college admission? Thank you.
Okay. So the first one, so when you take a dual enrollment class, right? It's a little different because a dual enrollment means it's on your transcript as a high school class, but it's also a college credit, right? So if you get an A in a dual enrollment class, I mean, you've already demonstrated, in my opinion, you've already demonstrated that you mastered the subject. If you want to take the AP exam and remove all doubt, that's optional. It's up to you. It's extra. It's not required, but it depends on the school. If it's in lieu of not taking the final, oh, you don't have to take the final as long as you take the AP. That's what I'm saying. Find the rules, but you can do both. There's no harm, no foul, as long as you got a 5 or a 4, an A. What you don't want to see is you got an A and you get a 2 or 3 on the AP test. That means that this A is worthless, right? That means you didn't master it. This college class was easy, right? You took it at a community college, the students weren't, as motivated, and you didn't really master the concept. So you got to make sure that, if you are going to take the AP test, that you've taken the mock test, the practice, you're confident you're going to crush it. If you're taking dual enrollment,
so is there benefit of doing both together? I mean, just stick
what
with
I've seen
one.
some people do, I've seen some people, they take summer class, right? They take in the summer. They want to take pre-calculus so they can take AP Calc ahead, right? So or it's not pre-calculus, that's a bad example, but they take AP Bio, and they'll take it in the summer so they can take AP Chemistry. They don't want to do AP Chemistry and AP Bio the same year and get hurt. They'll do one in the summer and the other one in the school year. If you take the AP exam and you do it again, not at a community college, it depends. Some colleges will not accept some community college credits. It's really important to check what they accept. That's why some dual enrollment comes over, some doesn't. If it's at a community college, it may not come over, and that's why the AP test is important, okay? If it's at Ohio State, it's a credit 4-year university, it will count. It's a 4-year college, right? So if you took an AP Bio class at Ohio State in the summer and you got an A, there's no question you understood that concept, you mastered it, right? The problem is you're not going to be able to take the AP test till May. So you have to take 10 months later. There's no benefit, in my opinion, 10 months later to go back and remember what you did to take the test. You got the A from Ohio State, you're done. But if you took it at a community college, it may not be accepted and you may have no choice but to take the AP test, right? And the question about sports, the only way it's going to make a difference is if you're being recruited, okay? And the way Harvard, when they got sued for affirmative action, they had to release some of their material. You can Google, how does Harvard grade applicants? They don't release the weights, but they show you the buckets. Like we talk about academic rigor, they grade your school 1 through 5. 1, and they'll say, if it's a very difficult school, you get a certain ranking. If it's an easy school, you get a certain ranking. How hard were your subjects? They grade you. How hard were your sports? So in Harvard's case, I think it was like 1 through 5. One was like you won the Olympics, okay? Or you're on the national. 2 is like you're on like national team or regional team. 3 is like you're on varsity. 4 is like club. 5 is like a hobby. Like they have a rating system, right? So if you are trying to get recruited, like I have a student who is being recruited for squash. I mean, the coaches know about you, right? Because you go to the tournaments where the coaches are watching. They cannot contact you until September 1 of junior year. Then they can reach out to you and say, hey, we want you to apply. And in this case, for this student, they're like, look, you need to get a certain SAT score. If you make that certain SAT in your GPA in this range, we can give you a spot. So it's not like you could be a dummy and just come in because you're good. You still have to have a good score, maybe a little lower than the average, but it's because you're recruited for a sport. And so on that scale, 1 through 5, they might be at number 2, not 1. They're not Olympic level, but they're the national level.
Yeah, there's a couple of other questions coming up. I mean, Jazakumullah khair. I know we're taking it's more than an hour now, and I put actually in the chat the admissions.com. That's the contact information of Osman and Amina. Anas, you have a question, but before Anas, actually, because there was a question before you was posted on the group, is about making a good college list that includes mix for safety, target, and reach schools. Maybe that I'm not sure how big of answer that, but kind of there are dream schools, but there are things that you can reach, and obviously safety. That's how to build this.
So our philosophy is this, and this is actually a slide Sister Jenna created. It's one from our presentations. We agree on one thing. You shouldn't be applying to a lot of safety schools. I didn't. I remember I applied to 14 colleges, and I applied to like a lot of colleges I would never want to go, but I know it was easy to get in. In my opinion, there's no point applying to a college your child does not want to go to. I'd rather recommend them take a gap year. If they don't get anywhere else, take a gap year, take time off, come back stronger. It's more important. In the long run, it doesn't matter. So if you need a safety school, the 1 or 2 that you want them to. There's no point applying to 10 safety schools. Match, you're going to have a significant amount that you're a good fit. How do you know what match and safety and reach are? There's tools like Naviance. They'll show you SAT, ACT on one dimension, and they'll show you GPA on another, and they'll do a scatter plot, right? And they'll show you.
What's the name of that tool again?
Naviance, Naviance. And you typically get that through your college counselor if your school participates, or you can get a subscription. I'm not a big fan of that, because what they do is, I remember when Amina was in grad school, they looked at her GPA and her MCAT score. They said, you have no chance of getting to med school. Like, who are they to tell you have no chance, right? They're like, you're on the borderline. People from our university with those numbers don't typically get in. But if you want to try, we're not stopping you. Yeah, I'm like, you should never tell somebody it's impossible, right?
Because that only pisses them off.
So, I mean, in my story, I thought I was going to do engineering. I got expelled in my final semester, 8th semester of engineering, mechanical engineering, with a 0.9 GPA. And I came back a semester later, and I told them, give me another shot. They're like, what do you want to study? And I was like, well, I know I like numbers, but I don't like deriving equations. They're like, what major is that? I'm like, well, let me figure it out. I made my own major 30 years ago. Today, it's an official major at my university. It's called data science or integrated business engineering, half engineering, half business. It didn't exist 30 years ago. I had to create my own door, make my own major. That failure was a blessing. Alhamdulillah, it helped me when I applied to graduate school stand out. Because the first time I applied, I apologized for having a bad GPA. And I'm going to be a good student. They don't care. Rejection. The second time I said, listen, I failed. This is how I learned from my failure. And this is how I help students who are at risk of not graduating graduate. Because I try to be the mentor I wish I had. Right? And they told me you applied too late, last day, last round. You have to have a strategy. I applied no strategy and said, keep in touch because we don't have any spots. Even for you, I remember when you applied to med school, you applied late. And they told you you're applying for the wait list because they've already interviewed, right? There's a time frame you have to apply. And so we were a little late. We don't have the best GPAs, we don't have the best standardized test scores, but we have big dreams. And they called me after orientation started, because that's when people who put deposit.
What school was that?
Cornell.
Mm-hmm.
They said, hey, somebody didn't show up who gave us a deposit. So they must be going somewhere else. Can you show up on Monday? We were living in Columbus, Ohio. We were living in Easton at that time. It was 2004. We're like, yeah, we can get in the car and drive. We'll be in New York on Monday, right? Alhamdulillah, it was meant for you. It's meant for you, right? Like, so that's the point. The point is you have to have a strategy. Don't let dreams be limited by GPA and SAT. You've got to do the work, but there are other ways to supplement your story.
تمام.
Good.
There's Anas has the question.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is quite informative. Just going back a little bit in time, you mentioned that just to touch on things that kids can do in middle school. You mentioned the creative writing. You mentioned the reading.
Yeah.
What do you recommend other than other than those two, or maybe if you want to rephrase it and just be more pinpoint
Yeah,
to
I mean,
things that our kids can.
it's got to be original, right? So if I said Russian math, which 5 years ago, that's what I said. Everyone's doing Russian math now. It's not an original idea anymore. Do you know what I mean? So the point is your child has to find something that they care about. Legos used to be whatever they do for fun. It doesn't matter. It's really what they learn. It's not the what. It's how do they grow? What do they learn? And how do they help others? How do they use that? For example, when our kids, when we used to live next to him, our kids were really big in Legos. And I remember my kid was watching Discovery Channel one day, and the kid was like, "Oh, we're collecting Legos for our mission to Africa." So I reached out to Iyad. I said, "Hey, Iyad, I know you know people in Syria who who are impacted by what's going on, and some of these people are living in refugee camps. I'm watching on TV in Africa, there are kids in refugee camps, and they ask them, and these kids are like, we are bored, we don't have things to do. Could you, if we collected Legos, do you know anybody who could take it to Syria?" And he was like, "Yeah, I do. I could personally take it. Or I know people who could take it, and I know they could deliver it to kids, right?" That shows, and that was an idea. That's the thing. Anybody can have the idea. We didn't execute that idea, okay? But that was an idea that 7-year-olds and 8-year-olds had. We love to play with Legos. How do we share that with others? That creative gift of creativity when you don't have anything to do, right? And so that's what I want kids to do. It's not just about reading books and writing essays and showing up for competitions. It's like, how do you make the world better? And a child can do that. They have the best ideas. If we can just open the doors with our network, just that's more than enough, right? And it's not just shadowing. It's not just giving them, if you're a dentist, giving them access to your dental, letting them watch, they can see a root canal. I mean, that's nice too. But how is that helping society? How is that helping make a difference?
And I think, to your point of like, how do you distill down critical thinking? Excuse me. I think it's hard to describe it specifically, but one of the things that I think that we can do really well with our kids is help them question, things that are happening, to develop a questioning mindset of why do you think, why do you think Trump is favored? What about Trump's message appeals to people? Why does it appeal to people? So you're really teaching your child, and that's, that's an easy topic to talk about, right? Like that's something that you can easily have a thought on with your child. But even things that are like specific to their course load in their class, when they're learning, AP geography, why is this concept depicted this way? And so it's not just questioning authority or questioning an infrastructure, but it's also just the concept of questioning. So you're
The information.
Yeah, you're helping them build that critical thinking. So, because what are we are asking them to go to school, consume all this education, and then be able to spit it out, right? But the kids that stand out in these processes are the kids that are able to get to that next level of critical thinking. So their executive functioning is even higher.
Yeah.
So the way we can help our kids get that is even in their junior high, the topics that they're learning, or what's happening in their friend circle, or you're just questioning, hey, did you think of it this way? And it's a non-confrontational approach. But I feel like we ourselves can do a really good job of helping them just build that into their daily lives even, so they keep that sharpness in their mind.
Yeah, anytime you find these opportunities, I mean, some of them are right in your backyard. Take advantage of them. For example, we're in Chicago, so we had a lot of student encampments at Northwestern, at University of Chicago. Some of them were violent, that went in the news, like U of Chicago. Some of them were more peaceful, like Northwestern. So I took my eldest son, I took him with me, and I had to meet some of my students that, you know, we worked with who got in there. And so we got to meet there. We walked around in the encampment. We met the professors. We met the students. He ended up talking to Jewish Voice for Peace. He had no idea there were Jewish students who were creating a barricade when it was Salah time to protect them while they're praying. So it opened his eyes like, wait, I didn't see that in media. They didn't show pictures of that. Whatever we can do to have them take their blind spots off, right? I have a student who is writing about a trip he took to Europe for a big major World War II battle that he got to visit the site. But then when he came back, he reflected that they were only showcasing the European countries that fought in World War II. They didn't showcase countries like India that sent 3 million soldiers to fight for the British flag. They're not represented in any of those monuments there, or they're very small token footnotes. So he started writing critically about that. He wrote a whole paper about that. And now he's tying that into his essay that he wants to possibly do a political science major, and he wants to study about, critical thinking on how historical facts are reported. So again, it's not just questioning authority.
Yeah.
Questioning what's around you, who's telling it to you, how it's presented.
I would take one more question.
If you put that in their house, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, Osman, there's one more question. This is going to be the last question from Asad, I think. Ridwan.
Yeah, thank you, Othman, and for the panel for the great discussion. Two simple questions. One, is there any statistical correlation or relationship that you know of kids performing in, let's say, late elementary, middle school, early high school to college? Like, should we be stressed out when our kids get B's and C's, or should we be, beating up on them and do your homework, or should we, it does not really, like, we don't want all C's student, but does it really matter? Is it like all A student, they have to be A in everything, or should we be more relaxed? Like, if they get a B here or a C, and then that's fine. And number
Radwan,
two, yes.
Radwan, quick, there's definitely no beating, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
beating up, not physically, not physically.
I got it. Yeah. Question two.
Number two is, what is our messaging to our kid in terms of getting those, scores in colleges? Like, hey, I want you to do this in Columbia and Harvard, and I really want you to go there. Or should we say like, okay, do well, do your best, we'll support you. But should we? What is the message in terms of to our kids to prepare them to that phase?
So I will answer the second question first, and I want you to answer the first one. But the second question, Amina's brother Eli, the one we talked about. He got into Harvard he didn't even, that was not his dream. That was not his goal, but he had done the work, right? He had done the work, and we said, challenge yourself. Let's pick a school. And he applied, and he got, again, he was focused on BSMD, but we said, hey, do you want, not all the top students, smart students are applying to BSMD. They're like studying art, studying.
Just for people who do not do BSMD.
Oh, sorry, those are direct admit. Out of high school, you get into med school without an MCAT requirement, right?
You go straight admitted from you taken to college and mid school, kind of guaranteed.
At the same time.
Yeah, you admitted at the same time, but you still have to do college. It's not like in India you do undergrad. You're going straight. You do undergrad, but you have a guaranteed seat.
But you have guaranteed spot, yeah.
So he was focused on that. But I said, listen, you work so hard. Why don't you see how you compete with, all the other students who don't care about medicine as well? So he said, let's pick one school. He applied to Harvard, got in early, and his essays were, I think he wrote about getting
That one didn't
Didn't
make
make
it.
it. He was working for Habitat for Humanity, and he, you know, his perspective on like his, you know, when he was building a home, and his, you know, his perspective on, you know, just standing up 3 stories high up in the air, building a roof and looking down and seeing how people, how small people, how his perspective of life changed when he saw how small people were standing up in that roof.
I think
But the
Your-
point,
the question.
I was just gonna say, the point is, he got in early. And his parents are like, Amina's parents are like, well, we can't afford that. Why did you make him go? I said, let's see what happens. Then they gave him a full scholarship, you know, financially they qualified. And then he turned it down. So that's what I said. He turned it down because he taught me this, and it's one of our mantras: focus on fit, not brand. It's really important to find your fit, because there's a huge mental health issue in colleges. Students who've never had a B or C in high school or middle school come in and get their, shocked the first time, get a C in organic chemistry, and then think the world's over, right? So they don't know how to handle that. So it's really important for them to find their fit where they don't just survive, right? You want them to thrive in college, and you want them to find their tribe. So when they arrive, they're going to do really well, right? So we want to give them the school, the presentation skills, the communication skills, the writing skills, the critical thinking skills, the reading skills, so that they can handle adversity in college, but because they've handled adversity in middle school and in high school, they were getting a C or a D, but then they got the tutoring, they got the help, they went to Khan Academy, they found the resources to recover from that D to a B, right? That was the growth. That's more interesting. It's not the B or the D. It's how did that child grow? That's what we want. So with Ali, he picked Northwestern because it's close to, for multiple reasons. It had the BSMD program he wanted to go into, and it's close to his home, right? And he stayed there for 14 years. From freshman year till he finished interventional radiology fellowship, stayed there 14 years. It was that good of a fit for him. Not everybody stays in the same school, but the point was focus on fit, not brand. But we also want the child to aim for the moon. So you got to do the work. In order to shoot your shot, you've got to do the work. Try your best. If you're struggling, get help. Don't give up. And so that's the best I can do. Give them the tools so that when they go to college and they get their C, where do I get extra help? There's teaching assistant hours, office hours. There's resource centers, math resource center, places where I can get additional help, places that have past exams that I can practice, to show them how they can complement what they learned in the classroom with these additional resources. Teach that in junior high and high school, so that when they go to college, they're not drowning. They know if they stumble, they know how to get back up, right? So that's the most important thing, is if they know how to get back up, they're going to be fine. If they've never fallen, that's what I tell parents. I'm like a driver's ed teacher. You can either get a driver's ed teacher who's had the perfect record, no tickets, no accidents. You can have your child learn with someone like that. Or I'm the kind of driver's ed teacher that had such a horrific accident that ended up in the hospital, had to learn how to walk again, right? And I will make sure your child does not go through that pain. So that's the thing. You don't need those. I mean, the point is, teach your child how to bounce back. So if they fail, it's okay.
So to the first question, you wanted Amina to comment on that about,
Yeah.
I kids in, elementary school, middle school, there's some struggling here. How hard we have to be, what, things we need to do to improve, and, making sure that we get, better from that perspective. How much we need to be stressed about it anyway.
Yeah, so stress, no. The reality is it's a long journey. And so stressing about, a C in middle school is not, formative. It's not constructive. But I think what it does is it gives an opportunity to sit down and say, what went wrong? What was going on that we weren't able to get you supported enough? Or do you feel like you were supported? Was the teacher not clear? You know, where were we falling through together? And it's like collaborating together. It's not that, you know, paternalistic looking down, like, why didn't you study hard, right? It's more like, let's look at this as a strategy. Let's look at this as a game. How do you get to that goal that you wanted of an A? What could you have done differently? And so I think those are actually really formative moments, like Asman was saying, where you're teaching a student how to become a better student. And then those are skills they use, you know, throughout their lives as students.
Teach them how to learn.
Yeah, you're teaching them how to learn, but also like how do you make sure you turn your homework on time? You know, did you keep, you know, turning your homework later and you only got 50% because that's all that teacher allows? Did you talk to people, you know, the year before that had taken it and had, you know, this information? So what happens is kids get smarter and smarter at how to do this. And they learn, one of the biggest things that I think is important is our kids learn how to get information from other kids, and develop those relationships and develop those friendships positively, where they get like, hey, I heard this teacher's hard with this. Well, this, you know, their tests are hard, but you get extra points through their quizzes. So like all these high school students, they talk to each other constantly. They're giving each other tips. They're giving each other resources. So I feel like, you know, we should encourage that in our kids, but also have them be thinking about it and have them be like open with their friends. And so then their friends give back, and then they surround themselves by these kind of friends that are aiming for that. And wanting to help each other through those things. Cause I feel like we can do so much for them, other than support them and be positive, but also have, you know, obviously we're high achievers, right? So our kids already have that pressure because of what we've accomplished. So there's an understood expectation that's already there. So when we come to them with, you know, some sympathy, some grace, they actually appreciate it because they're pretty hard on themselves, whether they let us know or not. And so that's something to also keep in the middle of your mind, because you want to have a good relationship with your child. Because at the end of it all, it's not so important that they get into that, you know, top thing. It's more important that they're a good person, they're a good human being, and you have a good relationship with them, and they're set in many ways for their future, for their life, you know.
Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you very, very much. I'm so sorry we went over time. I did put, I think, moonshotadmissions.com is the website for your contact information. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
And it was really informative. It's always great seeing you both. And I say you are my neighbor, even though you're physically not here, but you're always close. And alhamdulillah. So inshallah, we'll see you soon, inshallah.
Soon.
Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.